What's going on, people? It's your boy Kid Shorty Gaming Nation in the building. Here again to review a video from my two I want to say the two homies, Ali and my man Fatty. They did a panel, and they were in the so. By the way, make sure to like, share, subscribe to the channel. Help me to get to 1,000 subscribers, 10,000 subscribers, 50,000 subscribers, 1 million subscribers. Right? I want to change the game and push the culture, especially when it comes to black culture, black men, and how we dominate the game. And with my brand of masculinity and how I do things, I want to, similar to what the Anchorman has done, similar to what Tommy Sotomayor has done, I want to push the culture in a direction, and write books, write literature, make pamphlets to show black men how masculinity is supposed to be from an objective historical reference point, not arbitrary shit thrown against the wall, right? We want to use objective facts from historical reference. Then from that foundation, we can express it differently, right? As I said, there's two layers to the game. There's the objective game and the subjective game. The objective games is the reality, the rules, how we operate based on the reality and the truth of the game. The subjective game is your identity and how you express yourself within that game, right? But my man Fatty and Ali, they were hosting a panel, and the ladies were talking about competition, and men need to chase this and chase that. But we're gonna go into the video, so I'm gonna show the video and then I'm gonna present my presentation to debunk what was said on the panel. So here we go, right?
Where yes, he is the one who initiated.
It's a value. The work starts for you to keep his attention, because it doesn't have to be you. He can go somewhere else.
Why? If you present yourself in a certain manner, then that man, and if he sees you, if he wants to be with you, then that man wants to intentionally pursue you. If you put yourself
but if he's so he pursues you, he lets you know that he likes you, whatever. You don't think now the work starts for you to keep his attention, because it doesn't have to be you. He can go somewhere else if you're actually.
So now what Mona Legacy is saying is correct. Women have to now do something in their feminine capacity to compete to keep that man's attention. She's absolutely correct, which is an art form that was maintained in the Victorian era and pre-feminism. But women have lost that art, right? Back in the silent generation and the greatest generation, those black men were not going to court or date a black woman that did not cook nor clean. Simple.
Absolutely. The question wasn't that. You can certainly compete. Absolutely. Why not?
Chase, correct?
But isn't competing
and chasing is not the same thing, though.
Yes, it is.
Why are you asking? No, it's not. It's not.
How is it not?
Isn't like a chase, like the person who gets his first wins. Like if we bought two cats and we won the same mouse and we both chasing it, like it's kind of competition. The person that gets the mouse first wins. Kind of like, wouldn't that be the same?
Which is funny is because women chase a degree, women chase a job, women make sure they fix up their resume and practice how to say their resume and then adjust how they say their resume to compete for that job. They know how to do those things, but they don't know how. But they do that stuff, but that's not considered them tapping into their masculine energy. But them doing that for a man is considered tapping into their masculine energy. Doesn't make any fucking
thing
sense.
with woman. Like, I'm a kept man, right? I'm staying right here, and y'all want something from me, and y'all compete with each other to see who's the best one. So you get the spot. Like, let me change it. Wouldn't that make women actually get the man that they want most times instead of getting the man that comes to them? Wouldn't that actually be good for women? They chase the man that they really want.
I do not
instead
agree.
of waiting the man that comes to actually get.
Yes,
So,
it
Yep.
will.
because
And the only reason why there's pushback is
But
because
you don't agree with a woman chasing a man, but you agree with a man chasing a woman. It don't make any sense. And I think women believe that that. I think the women reason why women do that, and they run a lot of game with a lot of fellas that do that, because now when when a man is chasing that woman, she doesn't have to submit to his authority, right? When he's in that constant chasing her validation in her box, she's getting and siphoning energy from him without reciprocating that energy back to him, right? And that's why he's a sucker, he a simp, all the other stuff, which in truth, that is a sucker because you're chasing a woman and she's not earning that access from you. And you're following her lead when you do that. Let's continue.
the word chase, they're having an emotional response to the word chase.
it's not the word chase. It's
Pursue.
Women shouldn't be
chasing and
competing.
competing are not the same thing.
Women compete all the time.
When you are in competition with somebody, you set yourself up and you set yourself up with standards that you are competing with someone that's your equal. When you say the word chase, you're chasing after somebody.
But who's the equal? You talking about the man being equal to you? You're not his
talking
equal.
about your competitors. I'm talking about when you're in a competition, you're an equal competitor. So your competitor A, competitor B, you're on equal thing. You going for the
No, that's not true. That's not true. Right? The man, he's competing for the best woman that's going to carry on his legacy. That woman is using her role, cooking, cleaning, feminine energy to compete for the best man. Right? The best man to give her resources. So the woman is using her role who was not equal to the man. She's subordinate to that man, right? It's the same thing with an employee versus a boss, right? The employee is competing for that job. That company is also competing for that employee, but they're not equal. Well, what do I mean when I say that company is competing for that employee, right? In order for that company to get that employee to want to work at that job, the employee has to create incentives, 401k, salary, chances for promotion within that company, right? So essentially the corporation or that job is competing for its workforce too. That's like the workforce is competing to get that job. But the company, the employee is not equal to the boss, the manager, the hierarchy of that structure, but they're both competing for each other, right? Same thing applies to a relationship, right? The man is not equal to the woman, but they're both competing for each other, right? The woman is competing to be chosen by that man. The man is competing to get for the best type of woman that's going to help him pass down his legacy. That's how that works, right? The woman is competing to get into that man's kingdom and world. The man is competing for the best woman to pass his legacy down or help him in his world, right? That's how that goes. But that doesn't mean because you're competing against each other that you're equal to each other, right? You're using your different roles and your abilities to compete. That doesn't mean you're equal.
prize, meaning the man. The man is the prize. But you are in a level setting. When you say you're chasing after somebody, no, you're not. That means that you're lesser than your competitor. So you can compete.
That's
So then you want that what that means is that if the man is chasing the woman, that means he's lesser than the woman. They keep saying it without saying it.
wordplay. I'm gonna chase it because I want it. I'm gonna chase it because I don't want her to get it before I do. That's why I'm gonna chase it. I'm gonna chase it because I want it. It's a value. I'm going to pursue it. I'm going to pursue and chase it.
Yes, but a woman doesn't show her interest by
This
a woman.
and the Ashanti warrior, it's always these African motherfuckers, ladies, like this, these Nefertiti motherfuckers that love using their feminine energy to be a parasite to a man, to drain his energy and not give him nothing back. And listen to what she says. I'm going to debunk everything she's saying with the presentation I bring forward.
It doesn't show her mutual interest by chasing. That shows she's in a scarcity mindset. It actually inverts the polarity. When she puts herself in the position of the masculine and she's chasing after him, she indicates to him she doesn't have the capacity to discern. She doesn't have the capacity to attract him. She has to put herself in a masculine position.
But
because
you're talking
things-
from a standpoint of him not already establishing that he likes her. He's already established that he wants you.
So if he wants you,
When-
why is
when
anybody
did she
else
put-
consideration?
Huh?
If he wants you, why is anybody else an option or consideration?
Because he's a man.
No, absolutely
And
not.
if you're not
See, now that she said it. See, the reason why the woman wants the men to chase her, because she wants to put herself in a position that's just she's the only woman. She doesn't want that man to consider other options. She wants to be the only option. That's why they want men to chase that chick without her doing anything. They believe by them doing that or not competing, it's gonna make them stand out. But that doesn't work. You're not showcasing him you're the best option by having him chase you and you're not reciprocating. That's how a lot of you black women lose.
We're not doing that.
Let's go.
Presenting
No. Nobody can talk. She's right. End of the conversation. Yeah, go after the man. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. Like, I'm actually very curious that the women are fighting each other, and I'm saving the HQ for last because I know she's coming in with the elbow drop, right? Why are women so why they don't agree if they should chase men or not? Like, where does this come from? Some women say, yeah, go get that man, and another woman says, nah, I'm not doing that. That shouldn't be the job of a woman. Like, let's start with Ann and then we go to back to
because they want to guarantee. They want to guarantee. They want to be able to control the situation. They don't want to risk anything. Right? And because now they're trying to control, I guess, to control dudes. Right? And every time you chase these women, that actually when you pursue, so men, when you're pursuing a woman and you don't tell her the conditions and how she has to keep your attention, that doesn't give her any reason to not compete for you. And now when you're chasing her, that puts her into the leadership position. That's what they don't understand. But they do understand that. That's why they want you to chase without her having to reciprocate that value. Now, I'm not going to go into the totality of this video because I don't have the time. And I don't want to waste too much time reviewing the video. I just wanted to use that as a reference point to go into this. Male-female competition survival as a foundational roles. Before civilization, the competition between men and women wasn't about aesthetics, social status, or emotional compatibility. It was about survival. Every role existed to ensure continuity of a tribe or clan. The biological or behavioral distinctions between men and women evolved not through ideology, but necessity. Men competed through strength, courage, and provision. Their value was measured by their ability to hunt, fight, protect. A man could bring food, defend against threats, and create tools or shelters was desirable, not just for personal reasons, but for the tribe's survival. Women competed through fertility, nurturing, capacity, and resource management. Women could successfully bear children, nurture them to maturity, and gather resources or domestic space were vital to the tribe's continuity. A woman's ability to organize, nurture, and sustain was crucial as a man's ability to hunt and build. So, the dual competition was complementary, not adversarial. Each gender success increased the other survival odds. How does that apply to dating? To modern day dating? And I'm going to break it down. Put my face up here. How does that apply? Well, if I am pursuing a woman, so me, for example, I have a one date policy, meaning in that one date, I dress as fly. I'm a bad motherfucker. I don't have my hair all shabby right now. I dress fly. and I take you on that date. Best restaurant I like to go is Jubilee or Panda Express because I love the food there. I take you to that date. Oh, there's an ice cream shop on Jamaica Avenue I like going to in my free time and shit. You know what I'm saying? So I'll take you there, and then when we're on the date, you know what I'm saying, I'll let you know exactly what my intentions is, what I'm looking for in a woman, what I expect from you. After that, the ball is in your hand to multiply what I told you. How are you going to respond to me? Are you going to respond to me by giving me the feedback, or how? When I took you on that date, that was me provisioning for you, or giving you a taste of my world and what I do. How is it now that after I provided that for you, how are you going to use your femininity, your presence, your softness to multiply that for me? How are you going to take the resources, the bit of resources I provided for you, how are you going to give that back to me? Are you going to call me back and tell me what is the next date to siphon more resources out of me? Or are you going to now say, you know what, he took me out of a nice place. He told me he was a construction worker. He do something in the trade. You know what? I want to, he probably been working hard in construction. After hard weeks of working, I'm going to take him out somewhere. And I'm going to take him to something. Or I'm going to cook something for him. How am I going to get that value back from that one date? And based upon your response, it's going to determine whether I continue to fuck with you or not. From a one date policy. All right. Let's go into it. Right? So after I provided you by taking you on a date, how are you going to use your nurturing capacity and resource management to respond to me? What is your response going to be? And I guarantee you most women don't know that. Right? So we're not going to go through all of this. Let's look at the Victorian era, right? The Victorian era represented transformation of British society from feudal era. So remember, the Victorian era was from feudal Aragonian evolving into capitalist society. So this is why a lot of relationships, or a lot of men, were custodians of relationships, and their protection and provision, or their patriarchal leadership, was expressed this way. It was to evolve. So this is how it went. Order to an industrial and capitalistic one. Before this, most people lived within local feudal systems, bound to land, hierarchy, and survival order. The Industrial Revolution shifted production from land to machines, from village to city, from survival-based living to wealth-based ambition. That social shift required new order, moral, gendered, and behavior to keep society cohesive amid rapid industrial growth. Why is this important? Because how society is structured is going to determine how the micronuclear family is structured to maintain and push that society structure forward, right? The Victorian model became the social engine of capitalism, a microcosm of structure, discipline, and duty, right? That the male role expanded and intensified in this period, and man identity was no longer tied merely to his ability to fight and hunt. It now depended on his capacity to earn, provide through industrial and professional labor, uphold moral and social respectability, maintain a disciplined household that reflected his competence and character. Victorian men were expected to be custodians of order, managing not just their trade and craft, but also the moral and behavior order of their wives and children. Men's social standing was judged not only by his income or manners, but by his family's reputation, which is why I think, in my opinion, the Victorian age was a big burden on men. It was more oppressive to men than it was to women, in my opinion, based upon how I observed this. And I'm gonna build the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna talk about that, the Victorian age, right? And I understand why the Victorian age need to happen, but it suppressed the male identity more than it oppressed the female identity. If his wife was disloyal, immodest, or scandalous, it tarnished his masculine honor. Thus, I'm right. Men were held responsible for both public and private order of their homes. This was not simply patriarchy as oppression. It was patriarchy as responsibility, discipline, and moral leadership. Right? All of this is important. So to Fadi and Ali, when you invite me onto the show, I will break this down. This is important to that conversation, right? Because this type of man, women had I'm showing you how men had to compete in their role for this type of dude in that time, right? At the same time, the Victorian man was idolized as the angel in the house. Her social function was to be sexually chaste, modest, and nurturing, represent her husband's moral virtue, raise discipline, moral children, embody grace and refinement, not chaos and sensuality, which would be big body count, whole phase, right? Example, so if I take a chick out on a one-date policy, how is she going to express this value to me for me to say, okay, you've kept my interest and you're making me want to continue to consistently invest in you. And I'm going to give y'all a vetting manual at the end of this breaking down. Women competed through virtue, beauty, and propriety, rather than open sexuality and independence. Marriage became the ultimate form of female success because it signified that she had been chosen by a man's standing. Her feminine worth validated through masculine selection. This wasn't oppression, it was biological sense. It was the social domestication of the feminine, meant to stabilize the explosive energy of industrial transformation. Right? So a lot of the Victorian model was to suppress the chaos of human nature, right? Both the male and female nature, right? Both sexes were turned into cogs of a more industrial machine. The system demanded efficiency, and efficiency required predictability, discipline, and moral restraint. Men's emotions and passions were suppressed in favor of productivity and stoicism. Women's autonomy and sensuality were suppressed in favor of virtue and order. It wasn't simply men over women. It was a system over human nature. This discipline turned human instinct, chaotic, emotional, primal, into organized power. That power built infrastructure, empires, and economies, but at the cost of emotional and spiritual authenticity. So while the system was reactive, it was necessary for civilization expansion and modernization. What people don't understand, or modern feminism don't understand, is that men, our identity was tied to a performative role simply because the barbaric nature of that time called for it. So both male and female identities was tied to society, to societal expression, a performative role, right? Which I agree that we did after this time, we should have evolved into something else, right? But it was necessary for this time. Very necessary. All right, so I'm going to go. All right, so this is just the history of things. Me going into the history of things. This is one too. The psychological trap, predictability, and power dynamics. My observation is key here. Modern men became predictable. Predictability and mating dynamics kills attraction. So this is why those women want you to trace them, right? In other societies, men pursue women, but women reciprocated through effort, loyalty, and virtue. Both parties competed to keep each other, sustaining attraction through effort. Now modern women are told, you don't have to compete, you are the prize. And modern men are told, keep proving yourself until she validates you. That's why they want you to chase. Because I'm going to show you that once she validates you, and she has to now submit to your power and your authority. And I'm going to show you. This turns men into emotional laborers, constantly performing value while receiving no reciprocal investment. It also turns women into passive selectors, unchallenged to maintain the traits that inspire loyalty or desire. The result: attraction without respect, interest without reciprocity, relationships collapse under imbalance. In the Victorian era, men derived identity from external performance, fulfilling duty, providing stability, and maintaining moral order. This was effective because women were socially bound to reciprocate and respect that structure. But in the postmodern world, as feminine gained autonomy, men were denied the right to redefine themselves internally, to create what I call the sovereign masculinity. Sovereign masculinity equal, so remember to you manosphere niggas, if I hear you motherfuckers use my principle and my talking points, you got it from this motherfucker here. Sovereign masculinity equals a man's ability to form identity, standards, and purpose, independent of social approval and female validation. I think I'm a Sigma at core, at heart. Right? I love the idea of the wolf, because the wolf, he can operate within a social hierarchy, but choose to leave that hierarchy and operate on his own. I think I'm a Sigma at heart, right? When I break down my zodiac and my birth chart, I'm a hybrid of both. This is why in my life, I've always had bullies that challenged me, and we always got into it, and I never understood why. Like there's always, every class setting I go into, there's always an alpha I get into it with, because I have an alpha sigma hybrid in my birth chart, right? My birth chart, I forgot the personality types that fit it, but it's called a strategic alpha, where I have an alpha at core, but I have a sigma essence to it, right? Everywhere I went, it's either some bitch trying to fuck with me or some dude trying to dominate me, and we always get into it eventually. Sovereign masculinity equals a man's ability to form identity, standards, and purpose independent of social approval or female validation. This is my term. When men begin to reasserting their sovereignty, saying no to imbalance, withdrawing from one-sided contracts and enforcing standards, society labeled them as toxic, fragile, or insecure. This social shaming reaffirms the Marxist and postmodern goal: destroy male leadership and redefine masculinity as submission to collective norms, which is collective norms. It can be that can possibly lead to communism or Marxism. So be careful when people say collective. All right. Let's go into. No, this is not what I'm going to go into. Was men designed to chase women? Biological reality, selection versus chase. In raw biological terms, men were not designed to chase women, as the woman was saying. The way modern culture defines it, as endless pursuit, begging, and performing for affection. Instead, nature hardwired men to compete for access to selection, not to chase for validation. Here's the distinction. Men compete among other men. They demonstrate value, competence, and protection and provision. Women select from among those competitors. They choose which man they will follow, trust, or mate with, right? So after my competition, the woman was to reciprocate by choosing. Look at this. They will follow, trust, or mate with. So after I presented myself, and you're supposed to, if I told you my interest in you by presenting the provision, protection, and competence, you're supposed to reciprocate by following or mating with me. That's how that went. That's not chasing, that's positioning. In evolutionary psychology, this is known as intersexual competition. Male versus male, followed by intersexual selection, female choice. The man doesn't chase the woman, he competes to be chosen. The man doesn't chase the woman, he competes to be chosen. Once chosen, the woman then reciprocates by investing, mating, nurturing, and bonding. That's that mutual reciprocation, not one-sided chasing. It's how pair bonding forms. I compete to be chosen. Once she chooses me, she's supposed to reciprocate that interest. Meaning, once I decide to take you on a date and you choose to follow me on that date, you chose me to follow me on that date, and you're supposed to reciprocate that energy. So, fellas, this is the game I'm going to give you. When you approach a woman and she gives you her number and you hit her up and you say, hey, yo, this is the time and place I want to go on a date, and she says she's not interested, she's a liar, right? No, hold on. Let me take that liar part out. She did not reciprocate that energy by following you, but she has a right to do that with her autonomy. But once she does that, you no longer chase because she's supposed to reciprocate. So when you give her your number and you hit her up and say, hey, I want to go to this ice cream shop at Jamaica Avenue at this time, dressed like this, and she tells you, no, or she gives you vague shit, or I'm just going with the flow, that's not her showing you interest. That's her playing games. She's not reciprocating that value by saying, okay, cool, I'm going to follow you, I'm going to dress this way, I'm going to show up at that time. That's how she reciprocates that value to you when you give her that instruction. So once she's not doing that, let her go. Cut her off. So that's a game for you fellas. In tribal or pre-civilized societies, men did not chase women through charm or dates. They demonstrated value by hunting, building, and protecting. Women observed and aligned themselves with high-value men. Once a man was chosen or accepted into her kingship or tribe, she then contributed by rearing children, tending camp, and destroying community. A lot of times in a lot of those hunter-gatherer spaces, a lot of them were not matriarchal because they weren't in warfare or defending land or fighting. They were more matrilineal, meaning that the identity of that clan passed to the women. And I already told you that system was fucked, right? But that's neither here or there, right? It was functional partnership. No man had the time or energy to chase in the modern sense because survival required efficiency. I'm saying again, no man had the time or energy to chase because I had to fucking hunt a big ass mammoth. I had to survive disease and the elements, and I didn't have time to be chasing no bitch around. If a woman didn't cooperate, another would. If a man couldn't provide, he was out competed. Love wasn't an emotional sport. It was an economic and biological exchange based on necessity. So nature's design, men pursued purpose, women pursued the man with purpose. Like you manosphere niggas say. But none of you manosphere niggas, with the exception of Angry Man or maybe a couple few, shout out to the Angry Man for creating that space. None of you have broken it down like this. Y'all just say surface shit and you don't give it no substance. You don't go through the history of it, of the why. You don't go do nothing. So now when the women argue you now, they can break your points because you have no historical foundation, right? Nature's design for man was to pursue purpose. Women pursued the man with purpose. Because that purpose meant her protection and survival. As tribes evolved into early civilization, so this is now where those tribes evolved from matrilineal into a more patriarchal sense, right? As tribes evolved into early civilizations, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece, Rome, the display of masculine value became more pronounced. Men began to court women, but courtship was still a structure to play, not a chase. Gifts and display was symbolic of status and stability, not desperation. A man's effort was transactional and strategic, tied to alliance, dowries, or lineage. In Rome, for example, the pater, which patriarchy, the etymology of patriarchy means the rule of the father, right? The pater families, male head of household, arranged marriages based on status and property. Romantic chasing wasn't even part of the masculine image. In fact, men who chased were enslaved by passion, were marked as effeminati, weak, men lacking discipline. That's why those women want y'all to chase them, because they want you to lack discipline so they can trick you into being a sucker, motherfucker, or effeminati. They want you to be effeminati. I think Fatty can say that word better than me. In fact, men who chase or were enslaved by passion were mocked as effeminati, weak men lacking discipline. The masculine virtue in classical philosophy was temperantia, self-control. Plato, Aristotle, and later Stoics all taught that a real man's worth lie in his restraint, judgment, and rational command over his passions, not in chasing women or sensual pleasure. So even back in the day, those men viewed men chasing a bitch around as weak, not masculine. I told you I was going to debunk that whole panel. I didn't have to review I didn't have to review the video. I could debunk it through historical facts and history and culture and how men operated in those times. So, Fatty, to debunk your idea of men bow to the tune of the women, bullshit. They never did that. But that's me just critiquing you, Fatty, because that's the argument you like to make, and a lot of manosphere niggas like to make, that, men move to the tune of women. No, they did not. As a matter of fact, they saw it as weak if you did that. The medieval to Victorian shift, court love and performance. The idea of men chasing women didn't appear until the Middle Ages with courtly love, a literary invention by troubadours and poets. I know what these words mean, I just can't pronounce them. Knights began performing grand gestures for noble women, symbolic loyalty, not genuine romance. This romantic ideal spread through literature, then was normalized as chivalry. By the Victorian era, the industrial bourgeoisie men adopted this code, being polite, reserved, and performative in pursuit of women's approval. But this was a social theater, not a biological instinct. It was designed to make civilizations appear refined, to tame a man's sexual nature, not to express it. The problem, when society collapsed, that system through modern feminism, the performance stayed, but the reciprocal reward female obligation was removed. So, when the men of the Victorian age did it, it was like you'd have to go watch like a movie talking about those times. It was like a dance between the man and the woman. She danced. He showed her the symbolic loyalty to her. She reciprocated by giving him a dance and a little flirting with him. It was an art. It wasn't something based on biology. It was an art. It was an art form. You'd have to go, I like watching those type of things, those type of plays, right? You'd have to go watch it to understand what I'm saying. It was an art. It wasn't like something. And then the women respected it, right? They respected the performance of nature by reciprocating that. It was an art form. It was honest male energy. It was innocent. Sorry, I can't express it properly. It was innocent. It was an art form. Like a lot of the Victorian era, it was a lot of Renaissance and poetry and men showing love for their women and chivalry and shit. But the women respected it and they reciprocated that energy because that was what it was to be a lady. It was an art. The problem, when society collapsed, that system through modern feminism, the performance stayed, but the reciprocal reward, female obligation was removed. The reciprocal reward, female obligation was removed. This punches a hole into a lot of you game culture niggas that keep talking about you're a beta if you hold women accountable. Show me any history, any chief, any king, any lord, any society where those men rule and they did not hold women accountable to obligations. And I will concede to y'all bullshit. That's how we got today's dynamic. Men chasing women, chasing affection that never reciprocates. Because the social contract protected masculine effort, what has been erased. Remember, there was a social contract that protected the masculine effort. It's been removed. So the men have a right to complain. Right? The modern misunderstanding, chasing is validation. In post-1950s feminism, women gained freedom from obligation but retained the entitlement to male attention. To male attention. That's what those women on the panel are trying to maintain. Entitlement to male attention. Media reinforced the idea that men prove their worth through pursuit. Dating culture glorified the persistent man who wins her over by never quitting. Meanwhile, women were taught that her value is being desired, not in reciprocating desire. This inversion rewired the masculine identity from leader to pleaser. Now men chase validation, not partnership. And women unconsciously lose respect for the men they control through that chase. That's what happens because now you're predictable now. You become boring. So in her biochemical brain is saying, shit, I got this nigga already. And because society's not holding me to compete for the effort, it's in her brain is like, shit, I don't have to do anything to get this. I don't have to do anything to maintain this value. All right. And I did a slide on that too. If I remember, I'll bring it up. Across history, biology, and civilization, here's what remains true. Men were designed to compete, not chase. Women were designed to select, not manipulate. The masculine essence in pursuit of mission, not pursuit of validation. When a man's purpose is strong, the right woman joins it. When he abandons his purpose to chase her, he loses both his mission and her respect. I think the Angry Man talks about that. Right? I figured this out, but I didn't use the language to describe it because I didn't know what to describe it as. I figured this out when I was 25 years old. And I used to be a personal trainer, right? And when I was a personal trainer, my whole life was about losing weight, getting into martial arts, and getting fit. And I met a chick, and she was attracted to that. And then, I thought when I got her, listening to a lot of boomers, that now I was supposed to spend a lot of time in trying to maintain and keep her. Out of doing that, she lost respect to that. And she said that to me. She said, yeah, I was attracted to you because you were so involved into losing weight, because I used to be 400 pounds at one time. And I dedicated my whole essence into the world of fitness, losing weight, martial arts, tournaments, getting into MMA, all that good stuff. And she said she was attracted to that because that's what I was on. And when I asked her, like, what happened, she said, like, yo, for some odd reason, I got turned off when you started paying more attention to me than yourself. She said that to me. At the time, I didn't know how to describe it. I know how to describe it now. Right? The only time a man pursued in nature was when the woman had already signaled receptivity, meaning he wasn't chasing, he was responding to mutual interest. Anything else, the endless pursuit without reciprocity is social programming, not natural design, all right? So it's not natural. Ashanti warrior, whatever the fuck your name is. The masculine essence is pursuit of mission, not pursuit of validation. When a man's purpose is strong, the right woman joins it. When she abandons his purpose to chase her, he loses both his mission and her respect. The only time a man pursued in nature was when the woman had already let him know, I'm receptive of you, meaning he wasn't chasing. He was responding to mutual interest. Anything else, the endless pursuit without reciprocity, is social programming, not natural design. Who had the ultimate power after women selected the man? This is the vital important thing, Fatty. Vital important that you need to understand. Biological reality. Power transfers after selection. In nature, the woman holds initial power of selection, but once selection is made, the power transfers to the man because he becomes responsible for survival, protection, and leadership. Here's how it breaks down. Before selection, the woman chooses which man's authority, seat, or protection she will accept. She's the gatekeeper of access, reproduction, and intimacy. This is her biological leverage. After selection, once she chooses, she enters his domain, his leadership, his protection, and his provision. So, fellas, black men, when these women have these high body counts, remember, she chose them niggas to be her authority, which makes her lose leverage over you and access to you. When she goes into that, she got to go to those men that she chose to have authority over her in that sexual act, to give her protection and provision and all that other good stuff. Right. So let's remember that. The man becomes the decision maker and protector for the pair or family unit. Her survival and the survival of the children now depend on his judgment and ability. So the woman's initial power is pre-commitment, but the man's lasting power is post-commitment. The equilibrium is that her choice activates his authority. Her choice gives him access. His authority sustains her survival. That's how nature designed balance. I know me, I said to no. Our nature, I said that. Right? And nature bows down to the will of the Almighty Father of the universe. Right? Among hunter-gatherers or tribal societies, this power shift was a matter of survival, not ideology. The man's strength, strategy, and provision determined whether the woman's and her offspring survived. Once she selected him, his word was law within their unit, because the consequences of disobedience could be fatal. But it wasn't tyranny, it was functional order. If he failed on his role, she could lose everything. If she undermined his role, they could both die. That's why ancient women naturally aligned with competent male authority, not because of oppression, but because of trust in his competence. You ever wonder why black woman was programmed to undermine black men authority? Because they want both of us to die. When she undermines a man's authority, the community dies. So keep that in mind. I don't think I should go through this. This is for another show, another thing. This is important. Men had the legal and financial control. Women had moral reputation and power. The virtue standard. A woman's behavior reflected a man's honor, and a man's behavior reflected her safety. It was a dual power structure. Men ruled the external world. Women ruled the social domestic world. But still, once a woman was chosen and married, the custodial and decision-making power rested with the man. Her influence was strong but indirect. The man's authority was final, especially in matters of family protection and provision. Right? So this is the objectivity of masculinity. I'm not going to go into that. I might make a separate video for that, for this. I broke a lot of shit down. I have ADHD, so I have to put down what I think about on paper or in a PDF form. A lot of times after I finish thinking and I leave it there, I forget that I thought about it. So no, I use these as a reminders of what I was saying. Let me look at this. So even in the pre-civilization hunter-gatherer era, there were providers and protectors of values measured by strength, skill, competition, men competed physically, strategically with other men for resources and female selection. Women were caretakers and nurturers. Their value was measured by fertility, nurturing ability, and alliance building. Cooperation with other women and kin. Competition. Women competed solely for male attention by demonstrating reproductive value, loyalty, and ability to maintain harmony in their group. Her role, once she chose a man, she contributed to his survival and strengthened his efforts. She did not override his authority. That's very important. Because a lot of you women believe that. Right? This is going across the different eras. Did a woman's domestic authority supersede a man's authority? This is very important. So to Fatty, this is very important. Hope you have me on your show one day. Across history, hunter-gatherer societies, early civilizations, and even Victorian household, the pattern is clear. Domestic authority is functional, not sovereign. Women manage the household, food preparation, child rearing, domestic labor, and sometimes social diplomacy within extended kin or community. This gave women relative authority over operations. They were the managers, not the rulers. Example, in Roman households, the mater familias directed servants, children in the household logistics, but the pater familias made the final decision on family direction, property, and alliances. Domestic power was subordinate to male authority and structure. That's like the sergeant or lieutenant are subordinate to the general of a military, just like the general is subordinate to the president of the United States. That's what that's like. The man's authority encompasses the strategic, economic, and protected decisions. The domestic sphere was his domain, delegated operationally to her, not a parallel sovereign sphere. So they were not equal or parallel to each other. She was lineal, meaning she was under him, right? Lineal meaning up and down. So he was up here, his structural authority was up here, her domestic delegated, her domain, she was in his domain. So her domestic sphere was down here. I wish I could draw a diagram of that. Authority was hierarchical and complementary. Her power enhanced his leadership. A well-run household reflected positively on him. If she failed or defied his direction, it was seen as undermining both family stability and the larger social structure. But within her operational domain, she exercised discretion, wisdom, and influence, not ultimate authority, right? This is for you NOI niggas talking about when you teach a boy, you teach an individual, but when you teach a woman, you teach a nation. Men hunted, protected, and strategized survival. Women processed resources, cared for children, and managed shelter. The domestic environment depended on his decision. When a group settled, what resources were gathered, and what risks were taken. She had operational autonomy, but always within the boundaries he established for survival. Conclusion: her domestic authority was practical and managerial, not absolute. So this is important. So this is going to Rome and Greece. So domestic authority was always framed by male decision making. Example: a Roman wife could direct servants and finances day to day, but she could not sell property, make binding legal contracts, or determine political alliances. All structural decisions were male prerogative. Her efficiency in domestic affairs amplified the man's public and structural authority. If she acted independently of his authority, it threatened both domestic and public order, right? Which is what women are doing in Black culture today. Women had more authority. They were guardians of virtue, education, and social priority in the home. Men were legally and socially defined authority. Domestic power did not override his leadership. It implemented and reflected his values. Example: a Victorian lady could choose how to educate children, organize servants, or manage meals, but she could not decide family finances, marriage arrangements, or property succession without his consent. So that's important, right? Modern interpretations like some NOI teaching, the nation raises no higher than the woman, often misread influence as sovereignty. Yes, a woman controls the domestic sphere, but control does not equal final authority. Authority flows from the masculine structural framework. Domestic influence is subordinate, supportive, and complementary. Patriarchy, rule of the father, is about final decision-making, structural vision, and legacy, not emotional or operational control. So to you Nation of Islam niggas, if you ever seen this. Even though women historically held domestic authority, it never superseded male structural authority. She ran the household based on his instructions, frameworks, and vision, enhancing his sovereignty rather than overriding it. So, vetting. If a woman is trying to use her domestic sphere to usurp your authority in the household, you have to remove her influence. And I'm going to rest at that. Historical analysis across eras. So this one is important. So for you feminists, what does it mean for men to lead by example? In pre-civilization, hunter-gatherer societies, men hunted, protected, and navigated external threats. Women managed domestic and caregiving roles. Authority dynamic. Men instructed, women executed. But men did not perform domestic tasks themselves. In other words, the general is not doing what the soldiers are doing. The foreman is not doing, the foreman in the construction site is not doing what the regular construction workers is doing. But because what? He is the hierarchy of command. He has to now do his roles as a foreman or a general, right? And if he has to, and his role is important because now his role is to make sure there's structure, there's rules and regulations, and they're enforced and followed. So he cannot do the same role as the grunt or the foot soldier because then he's not doing his role. And there's nobody in his hierarchy to hold everybody else accountable. Hope I expressed that properly. Power is granted by competence in the man's functional role, not by mirroring domestic labor. Example, a hunter leader authority over the camp stem from provision, protection, and vision, not his ability to cook or raise children. This supports my point. Authority comes from competence in one's domain, not replications of others' work. Paterfamilies, Rome, controlled household property and legal decisions. His wife, Paterfamilias, ran the household operations, but did not supersede his decisions. He sets rules, frameworks, and more direction. She implemented them. Greek city-states, men handled political, military, and economic leadership. Women managed homes and religion. Leadership was about principle, vision, and strategic competence, not performing domestic duties. Again, my claim holds. A man's authority did not require duplicating his wife's domestic work. It requires structural leadership and competence. So I think y'all can pause this. I feel like I'm talking too much, right? So this is the Victorian era, right? Y'all can pause this in the video and y'all can look at this and review this right here. Military analogy. Soldiers versus the general. Historical generals did not need to fight exactly like every soldier to maintain authority. Authority came from strategic competence, planning and tactics, more authority, discipline, courage, and vision. Personal example within the scope of their role, not replication. Soldiers follow generals because of their structural competence and vision, not because the general dug trenches or carried rations. Support my counterpoint against modern feminists. Lead by exact replication notion. That's another way for feminists to make you equal to them. Claim men must mirror actions of those that lead to gain authority. This assumes authority is performative, not structural. Historically, this is false. Authority is about role competence, principles, and vision. The feminist argument seeks to level men and women in perceived authority. Undermining male structural leadership misrepresents competence as performative mimicry rather than the sovereign mastery of the role. My analysis aligns with history. A competent man does not need to replicate domestic or subordinate duties to command respect and obedience. All right, so this is across Greek, Victorian era. So you can pause this and read this. And this is important, right? Authority as role relative performance. Performative authority is not inherently bad. The issue is what the performance represents. A man's authority is performative relative to his role, not relative to someone else's. Example, a general demonstrates leadership by giving orders, planning, and strategy, and maintaining discipline. He isn't required to dig trenches or load cannons like the soldiers because his role is higher order orchestration. So, in other words, if I am digging the trenches and loading the cannons, who's doing the planning? It takes an intelligent person to review the battlefield, know the role of the sergeant, the lieutenants, the tanks, and I have to be highly intelligent and think on the fly how to direct my soldiers. I got to know their functions and what to do, what they do, right? So you have to be very smart. Like, people don't understand that the mechanism of leadership, right? There's a spiritual mechanism to leadership, mental and physical mechanism to leadership. And anytime a leadership changes, it shifts the environment and how do people follow that. All right. Authority stands for competence, vision, and execution, not direct replication of subordinate tasks. Elder men and leaders didn't hunt with every man every day to maintain authority. Authority came from experience, skill, and decision-making ability, and survival protection strategy. So, for example, like a construction worker, right? The foreman once upon a time used to be a grunt construction, and he worked his way up the hierarchy. But now he's up at so now he has experience on how day-to-day construction workers operate. So now he's in the foreman position now. He has an understanding, but he's not now knocking the hammer like the regular construction workers, right? But now Look at the president. A president like Donald Trump or Barack Obama, they never went to the military. But guess what they can do? They can study strategy. They can read books about military and what they do and how they perform, right? They could go to a military base. They can shake hands with the soldiers, learn how they function, review that board, and then now they can effectively command based upon what they learn about the military, right? So, that's one thing, right? So that's how you gain skill and all that other good stuff. Women followed competent male leadership, but the performance was role relative, not task relative, right? Roman generals and partitions didn't personally farm, fight every battle, or enforce every law themselves. Authority was established through knowledge of structure, law, military tactics, and social management. The leadership was recognized because they understood every layer of their domain and could direct it efficiently. That's what I was talking about with the president. Oh, there it is. Leadership has a spiritual, mental, and physical mechanism. Spiritual moral sets principles and standards, the why behind authority. Mental strategic understands the system, roles, and how each part functions. Physical operational executes when necessary but delegates appropriately. I don't know if I could do all that with an ADHD brain. I could think about it, but it's like my brain needs a break to rest to go back into it. I think I could do it, but I don't know. You know what I'm saying? A president or high-ranking official may never physically fight, but if they understand tactics, trends of command, and operational execution, they can command authority effectively. If the leader is competent, the environment shifts in alignment with the authority. Subordinates follow because the leader embodies the principles and the structure of that role. So let me read this. Some modern interpretations say a man must do exactly what those he leads do in order to have authority. This is historically and structurally incorrect. Authority is about alignment with the role, competence, and vision, not literal replication. This misunderstanding arises because performative authority is visible, and some confuse visibility with replication. Historical truth: a competent leader leads from knowledge and principle, not from performing subordinate tasks. All right. So I'm not going to go into that part. So this up here, the 5 key principles. Domestic authority does not equal structural sovereignty. Women manage operations but did not control male strategic decisions. Right? So that's what was important. When you teach a boy, you teach a man. So I did it. So let me do this one right quick. When you teach a boy, you teach a man. That's the modern and the wide talk, right? This phrase emphasizes that early training and moral instruction that you shape their adult character. What's fun is that same boy, he's going to become a conqueror or a president of a nation, and he has to instruct or provide that nation's structure. So he's more than an individual. The idea is that masculine identity is formed in the formative years, and by instilling discipline, responsibility, and moral compass, you're shaping the man he will become. Historically, male competence, leadership, authority depend on early socialization, right? Boys observe adult males hunting, protecting, and strategizing. Learning was exponential. Participating in survival tasks taught practical skills, courage, and judgment. A boy who learns will become competent provider and protector, a man whose identity aligned with his role. All right, so this is going throughout the eras. I'm not going to break all of this down. Core principle, often attributed to the Nation of Islam teaching, emphasizes women as domestic moral and social anchors. The idea, the character, discipline, and influence of women shape the moral domestic environment, which in turn influence broader society or nation. All right. All right. The only thing is that the men have to give the women the moral compass and structure. So the men are shaping the women. who are giving birth to the children. So really and truly, it's the men shaping the environment and the women in it. Historically, women influenced the environment, but structurally, the authority remained male-dominated. The saying is about impact, not supremacy. A nation's effectiveness depends on domestic stability, which depends in part on a woman's competence. Right? Modern readings often overemphasize female sovereignty, assuming domestic influence equals structural authority, which it doesn't. Right? Implication for gender and authority: masculinity is developed early and individually, not magically acquired. Authority stems from competence, vision, and execution. Teaching shapes this trajectory. Femininity and domestic influence shape societal and national outcomes, but they do not override masculine structural authority. Mutual competition and complementary roles historically created stable family and social systems. A balance disrupted in modern times, right? This is also important. Women control the stability and health of the family unit, but the man is the ultimate structure. She aligns with him and teaches the next generation based on the structure he provides. Modern interpretations, such as some of Nation of Islam teachings, misrepresent this by implying women hold structural authority over the family or nation. Key points to evaluate: men as its ultimate structural authority. Women influence domestic life, but align with the man's framework. Children are shaped indirectly by masculine authority via feminine domestic influence, meaning that the only reason she has domestic influence is she's influenced domestic life based upon what the foundation that the men are setting, right? Some of you feminists are going to say, well, it's the man's fault because the women are teaching the children based on the man's framework. I got something for your ass. The nation rises no higher than a woman. Observation: this highlights the importance of women in shaping children and domestic culture. Flaw in the interpretation: it can be misread as female supremacy or structural authority. Objective breakdown: true. Women were critical for stability, morality, and culture. Clarification: their influence operates within the male-determined framework. Children inherit structure indirectly. Masculine authority, feminine domestic execution, children upbringing. Conclusion: my critique is historically accurate. The man is the primary architect. The woman is the vital conduit of his structure, not the ultimate structural authority herself. Masculine authority drives the environment. Men set the structural, moral, and strategic framework. Feminine domestic influence is derivative but critical. She executes the man's vision and transmits it to the next generation. Misreading authority can distort cultural teachings, emphasizing male supremacy over structure, can ignore historical reality and destabilize relational and societal hierarchies. Education of children is mediated. Masculine vision is indirectly instilled via feminine execution, showing the intergenerational impact of male authority, right? Women historically had autonomy within a framework. They were expected to manage domestic affairs, raise children, and maintain moral, social, cultural cohesion. This authority was derivative, operating on the masculine structure guidance, which means the men held them accountable. Deviation from the structure was historically seen as failures of responsibility, not failures of masculine authority. Autonomy existed within limits defined by male structure, framework. When women rejected or undermined that framework, it has societal consequences, like you're seeing in Black culture. So it's not the men's fault for not setting a framework or a game plan. It's the women's fault for rejecting what Black men set forth for them to follow. Pre-civilization hunter-gatherers. Women were essential for child rearing and domestic organization. If women failed to cooperate with male directives for food, childcare, or social cohesion, it could endanger survival. Accountability was direct. The group would intervene or adjust roles. Children and women would face the natural consequences of misalignment with survival structures, right? Right? So Roman matron, Greek house mistresses, or Egyptian domestic lead had responsibility to uphold the man's directives. Historical accountability. Mismanagement can reduce the family's social, economic, or political success. Moral or social deviation by women was sometimes sanctioned by social censure, loss of dowry, or other social penalties. Women were guardians of morality, child education, and household execution. Deviation consequences. Misaligned domestic management can harm children's upbringing and social reputation. Society explicitly linked the success of mental fidelity, morality, and competence of women in the home. Observation. Historical societies consistently held women accountable when their domestic execution undermined male authority or societal stability. So, to all you male niggas that love women's pussy too much, that you don't want to hold them accountable, women were held accountable. It was not feminine or beta for men to hold women accountable. It was actually masculine for them to do that. So I don't know where the fuck y'all got that logic from. Probably out of your ass. Autonomy, women historically had choices to how to manage the household, educate children, and engage socially. But choices had consequences. Accountability, they were accountable for adhering to the man's structural framework. This is why a lot of dudes, player pimps and max, non-traditional niggas don't want you men to hold women accountable because it takes away their access to box. Rebellion in alignment with external ideologies broke the link between masculine authority and social cultural transmission. Consequences affect children, household efficiency, and broader social cohesion, which is what's happening in Black culture right now. Sorry for the stuff it knows. All right. Modern feminism and social ideologies have blurred this historical accountability. Women are encouraged to interpret it and redefine structure independently. Deviation from male authority are often blamed on men, not on women's choices. Social narratives remove responsibility from women for outcomes they directly influence: child upbringing, household stability, and cultural transmission. Result: men may continue to provide structure, but women's rebellion poisons the intended framework, creating imbalance in relationships, child development, and social outcomes. So, when the women failed at their role, it wasn't blamed on the men. It was blamed on their choices, or them. Right? Not gonna go through this. Not gonna go through this. This is gonna be for another breakdown. I'll go for. It's gonna be for something else. Yeah, this is for something else. All right, so I'm gonna go to another presentation. Is this it? That's what I'm looking for. No, this is not it. No fault with that. I'm gonna go into two more presentations. Um, that one. Yeah. I'm going to a couple more presentations, um, briefly. And I'm gonna do separate videos of these coming up. I think they did their part to the culture of men and freeing men from certain things and thinking. Um, no, it's not that one. There's something else. All right, so this is one, right? Manual for vetting. So I had to go figure out what emotional intelligence was, and I finally had to go look it up to see what the meaning of it was. And this breakdown only came after the men started looking up what this was. Like the way how women were using it was not this. So I had to go look up what the idea of it was. Even though the idea of emotional intelligence, I don't know how you're intelligent while you're being emotional. But anyway, what this means now was not what it's being used for, or the women wanted men to use it for. Emotional intelligence, in its classical psychological sense, is self-awareness, understanding your own emotions, reactions, and triggers. Self-regulation, controlling impulses, staying consistent, and not letting emotions override judgment. This seems like this is something that should be attached to women. Social awareness, reading others' emotions accurately, relationship management, using that understanding to communicate effectively and resolve conflicts. It's a central tool for strategic understanding of human behavior, not a demand that men speak in metaphors or act like women. But this was not what it was used for. This was not what it was used for. The only reason why they came up with this definition now, or they went to go look up what it means, is because men was like, what the fuck is this? Was figuring out the manipulation tactic in it. How is misapplied to men today? Modern dating and pop culture often redefine EI for men as mimic her emotional language, speak vaguely but indirect, show softness to mirror her, adjust your masculinity to her whims, bend your actions to what she feels instead of staying aligned to your own principles. This is not true EI. True emotional intelligence isn't about mirroring; it's about decoding signals logically and responding effectively while staying in your role and maintaining boundaries. So, this is what they were using this for. How men should apply EI in modern relationships. Observe her behaviors, not just her words. Actions in our tangible form of her alignment, not feelings expressed vaguely. Access reciprocity. Is she multiplying your effort as you define with tangible contributions? Respond proportionally, reward acknowledgement, or just based on what she actually demonstrates, not her energy or abstract vibes. Stay rooted in your identity. Emotional intelligence is a tool to interpret and navigate interactions, not a reason to dilute masculine authority. Men don't need to think like a woman to be emotionally intelligent. They need to read her behavior logically, measure tangible reciprocations, and act based on principle, not on guessing her feelings, which is what women wanted y'all to do. I had to create something different. Traditional intelligence. So this is my thing, right? I came up with a concept. It's called traditional intelligence: logic, reasoning, Problem solving is clear, measurable, and principle based. Modern emotional intelligence is often applied to men in dating or social interaction. Acts meant to decode vague feelings, mirror moves, or bend to someone else's desire. The contradiction. Men are expected to use their logic and rational thinking to understand something that is intentionally ambiguous or illogical. Then act in a way that satisfies that ambiguity, like chasing a bitch. That's why you don't chase a bitch. True EI. Understand human behavior, reading actions, responding effectively, all while maintaining your principles. Modern pop culture EI for men. Be in tune with her energy and her bullshit, her vibes, her moves, and adapt constantly to satisfy it. This is often performative, reactive, and disempowering. Let me put my both my class face on the thing. Let me put my face on here. Put my face on here. You want men to chase that to fuck shit? In the distorted modern usage, called intelligence, does feel like an oxymoron because it acts meant to abandon clarity and principles to serve an abstract emotional puzzle. True intelligence isn't about emotional mimicry. It's about observing, interpreting, and responding effectively. That's why the idea of emotional intelligence is fucking stupid. And you got some of you black men out there adapted and saying that stupid shit. When you're saying your emotional intelligence, you're abandoning your traditional logic to try to serve an abstract, unpredictable emotional puzzle that women are. Women often communicate in ways that are indirect rather than stating things explicitly. They convey meaning through hints, tone, and context. Contextual. Meaning often relies on shared understanding, social norms, or relationships rather than pure facts. So this is the problem that we have in black culture and in these dating discussions on these platforms, right? Women rely on their shared stupid understandings, dumbass social norms, and ignore the pure facts of how a relationship is supposed to operate, right? Relational. Communication emphasizes connection, emotional nuance, and relational outcomes, not always logic or actionable steps. Symbolic often uses metaphors, stories, or social cues to communicate what they want or feel. This is not manipulation inherently, it's historical functional in pre-modern and pre-civilization societies. Women's communication was tied to maintaining cohesion, managing households and social alliances, which requires subtlety rather than direct confrontation, right? So that's just something built in the mechanism of women and how they communicate, because that's how they had to communicate. I'm not going to go into the story of it on this one. I might save this for another video. So, men communicate through coordination, hunting, protect the group, and managing resources. Style. Direct, action-oriented, minimal ambiguity. Language serve practical outcomes. Example, a man signals plans for a hunt, distributes tasks clearly, and signals danger through action or call. Biological basis. Man hormones testosterone reinforce direct action, spatial awareness, and task-oriented focus. Communication is functional, tied to survival. All right. So this is going through how Romans did it. Y'all can pause that and y'all can read that yourself. All right. So I said, how is this a vetting manual? Well, shut the fuck up and listen. Her softness, presence, translated for men. So when you talk about softness or presence, right? You have to use logic to interpret what she says, what that means. So this is what it means for y'all. Reciprocation of effort. If she provides something, time, attention, resources, or if he provides something, time, attention, and resources, she multiplies. Example, If he mentions his job or effort, construction, law, or business, she responds by acknowledging and enhancing it. Example, buying work boots, tools, preparing a meal after a hard day. Why it matters. Men see value returned in a way that reflects understanding of their work and identity. Clear interest through actions. Instead of vague hints or emotional cues, she does tangible things that signal commitment or alignment. Example, if he expresses interest after one date, she reciprocates by planning an activity, investing her time, or preparing for the next interaction. Why it matters. Men are action orientated. Clear reciprocal action signals she's aligned and engaged. She's aligned to your structure. She's engaged to your direction. So I call it the vetting manual. She follows his lead within context of shared goals or intention. Example, he sets a plan for her relationship, household, or dating process. She supports and implements it, not by blind obedience, but by actively reinforcing his plan with her energy and choices. Why it matters. Men value trust in their direction. She's demonstrating alignment without overstepping or challenging authority. Multiplication instead of addition. She takes his contribution and effort and enhances it rather than merely consuming it. She takes his contribution or effort and enhances it rather than merely consuming it. This is what a lot of you women do. Example, he buys tickets for an event. She contributes by preparing a gift, coordinating logistics, or making it a memorable experience. Why it matters. Men interpret this as engagement, respect, or partnership. It is tangible. It is the tangible translation of softness for a logical mind. Consistent presence shows up physically, mentally, emotionally where it matters, without being manipulative or testing him endlessly or shit testing him. Example, he expresses a plan. She participates reliably and enthusiastically, showing her energy is aligned with his direction. Why it matters. Men see presence as proof of value, not just feelings. So, fellas, if a woman is not doing any of this, don't, on the first date, don't invest. Disengage. Men interpret direct, tangible action as the expression of feminine energy. Words like soft, present, or receptive are too vague. Men need observable behaviors and concrete responses. So if she's not showing you what this means, cut off. A woman's value is communicated through reciprocation, alignment, multiplication, and presence, all tied to his efforts and direction. All right. Should I even do this? Y'all didn't even listen to Kevin Samuels, and I'm not a handsome, sexy, flexy nigga. So I know you're not going to listen to me. All right. I'm kind of tired. I might do this tomorrow. Let me just read this, right? Observation of emotion. Focus on, so this is my thing. This is my counter to emotional intelligence, logical interpretation. Focus on what she does, not what she says she feels. Example, if you take her on a date and she reciprocates effort, prepares, contributes, follows through, she's aligned. If she creates ambiguity and requires illustration, she is not. Translate ambiguity in decisions. Every action she takes is information about alignment. No overanalyzing feelings. Treat her behavior as data. Logical question. Is her behavior reinforcing my investment or draining it? Her presence, effort, or responsiveness should multiply your investment. Example, she buys you workbooks or tools after you share your profession. She explains a meaningful date and pays her part. She plans a meaningful date and plays her part. She respects her rules, boundaries, and instructions. Non-aligned behaviors signals endless delays, vagueness, testing that requires repeating chasing, pretending interest without action, refusing to respect your standards or boundaries. If she's not doing any of these, leave her the fuck alone. And have I used this before? Yes. Everything I put here, I've used this before, right? I've done this before in my 20s. I'm 33 now. I've done this in my 20 to 25. And then right before COVID, right? Right before COVID, before everything shut down, I just kind of went ultra introverted, right? The problem with my type of personality type, I'm a hybrid, right? I can socialize with people, but I get introverted at a time, right? So if you put me in a position where I get to be homebound in introversion or isolate myself, I'm gonna stay there, right? So I cut everybody off, which is not good, right? Isolation is the enemy to sickness. Gather information. Every interaction provides tangible evidence. Note patterns of behavior over time, not isolated moments. Translate behavior into alignment or misalignment. Multiplying your effort equals alignment. Draining your effort equals misalignment, right? Decision point. Continue investment only if alignment is observed. Stop and redirect energy if misalignment persists. Avoid overcomplication. Logical interpretation is binary practice. Align, proceed. Not align, exit. Avoid subjective assumptions, emotional projections, or guessing intentions beyond observable actions. So this is putting man back into your logical brain and mindset, not into her emotional bullshit or emotional intelligence or whatever that means. Right. So it's true what she says, right? Man's masculine energy initiate, leads, provides, protects, creates. His energy is outward and directional. It is observable to action and competence, not abstract feelings. Woman's feminine energy receives, reflects, multiplies, and aligns. Her energy is tangible, responsive to a man's masculine energy, not a dictionary of it. A woman's power comes from her being in her feminine energy, receiving and multiplying his effort. So if I step to you, you're not multiplying my effort, I'm going to disengage. Not from trying to lead or initiate the chase, right? Modern interpretation says women shouldn't chase a man because it puts her in her masculine energy and diminishes her femininity. That is partially correct, but incomplete. Why she can't secure attention in masculine energy? While she tries to initiate the chase, she's doing what the man's role is supposed to be: competing, providing, proving value. This removes the man's incentive to continue investing because he's no longer leading or having his effort multiplied. Having his effort multiplied. So to whatever the fuck warrior your name is, if he's chasing you and you're not multiplying his effort, you're not keeping his attention. Why secure attention matters of feminine energy? Her role is to maintain alignment with his effort to show value and reciprocation. Example, he provides, she multiplies it. Date, support, acknowledgement, practical reinforcement. If she stops securing his attention, she's no longer in alignment, and the man reads this as disinterest or misalignment. Disengagement follows naturally. This is why women can't get the man you want, because you don't know how to multiply his effort. Modern teachers exaggerate the idea that women must never approach or secure a man's attention. This is flawed because women still need to assess the man's leadership and intentions. Not seeking attention can make her misaligned with a high-value man. Alignment is active, not passive. She must receive, multiply, and respond, which requires active engagement with her feminine energy. Leaving power entirely to the man is incomplete. Without reciprocal action, even masculine men disengage because investment is one-sided. The outcome: if a woman doesn't secure his attention within the feminine energy framework, she loses alignment. Men disengage naturally and women lose influence. What's her influence? So I think I broke this down already enough. She is misaligned. She stopped reciprocating or multiplying effort. She acts independently of a man's initiative, trying to secure attention via masculine energy. She displays vagueness, ambiguity, or delayed response. So what's a delayed response? When you text her, hey, let's go out to Jubilees or Panda Express. And it takes her several days to respond. She's not in alignment. Man's logical takeaway. If she stops multiplying effort, disengage and reassess alignment. If she maintains tangible alignment, continue investment. All right. Her influence and context. A woman's influence is the effect she has on a man's willingness to continue investing, pursuing, and leading. Not her ability to lead, override, or direct him. It is entirely relational and responsive, not initiation, or whatever. Key points. She does not supersede his authority. Authority belongs to the man. He sets the structure, rules, and direction. Her influence is never about changing his plan or opposing her will. She secures him within his authority. Influence is about maintaining his focus and effort toward her and the relationship. Example, he provides, protects, and invests. She multiplies it or responds tangibly. This ensures she doesn't disengage. So this forces the women to have to use her feminine energy to learn about this brother to maintain his attention. She enhances, acknowledges, and multiplies energy. She does not initiate his chase or make decisions for him. Example, he tells her he works to suction. She supports the effort by practical enforcement, work boots, meal, acknowledgement. So, example, if I'm working 7 days a week in instruction and we go on a date, first date, right? And then I tell you I work 7 days. The next day, you cook me a meal. Shit. DoorDash some shit. Her influence is directional, not controlling. It guides alignment, not outcomes. She maintains the condition for him to continue leading. She helps reinforce his identity and purpose through her presence and action without interfering with his authority. Her influence is contingent on alignment. When she's in alignment, influence flows naturally. When she is out of alignment, not multiplying, not responding, or trying to lead, influence is lost and the man disengaged naturally. This is why that 90-day shit Steve Harvey told you didn't work. Woman's influence, the ability to keep a man engaged, motivated, and aligned with her through her feminine energy, presence, and multiplication of his effort. It is supportive, not directive. It secures the man, it does not control him. Right? So I hope I broke that down. I think I'm going to end it there because the other presentations are long. But yeah, so shout out to Fatty and the Untouchables. I hope I broke this down today. I'm going to put this video up for everybody else to look at it. So Fatty, I hope you guys have me on your show. But remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 50,000 subscribers. Help me get to 1 billion subscribers, so I can help change the world and influence the culture. You know, and free black men from black culture, what black culture tells you to be, and what society tells you to be, and define yourself. Right. This is Kish Yardy Gaming Nation, or Kish Yardy Views and Vlogs. I have to change the channel's name because this is what I'm doing now. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I'm out.